This is John Walton, and you're listening to the Power Play Point podcast with the Blue Liner on point and Anna Knox. Here's Wilson, and on the right side, he
Rebound loose, wild scramble in front, score! Ovechkin with a buzzer beater! It'll count!
And the hat trick tonight, number 21,
Spectacular! Braden Holtby!
Hello and welcome once again to the Power Play Point podcast. This is your host, the Blue Liner on Point, talking to you live to tape from downtown Glen Burnie, Maryland. It's kind of an overcast day today. I'm looking out my window, but hey, all the better. It's kind of sort of hockey weather, even though it's 1st of May, as we're talking to you. Doing an early matinee edition, mixing things up a little bit, trying to change the schedule around. Unfortunately, because of that, the mermaid, who's usually with us, is on assignment, and because of some schoolwork she had to do, so she will not be joining us. But with us this week, we have a very special guest who will lend his experience. Think you're gonna like a lot of what this guy has to bring to the table. Friend of mine I just met through a mutual friend, Tyron Waller, and let's bring him on now. His name is Jacob Michael. Jake, how you doing this evening, today?
Hey, man, how's everyone doing? It's a pleasure to be here.
Pretty good. As I said, just going to be you and me, we've been chatting it up last week or so, and it sounds like you got a lot of great ideas about what's going on with the Caps and what from what you've been seeing, and can't wait to hear you here. But before we get started, gonna do the usual introduction since it's your first time on the show, first time for our listeners hearing you. How'd you get started as a Caps fan?
Well, when I was about 4 years old, I went to a birthday party for a kid that was in my pre-K class, and it was at an ice skating rink, and my grandparents said that I loved being on the ice so much they were just going to put me on it. So I ended up starting playing hockey in about 2002, 2003. And then, of course, Ovi got drafted, and he was basically my biggest inspiration whenever I was growing up. We did have the Hurricanes, but, I mean, just my personal childhood and me playing, him being the guy that I looked up to, him being the guy that I was trying to model my own personal game after, I just gravitated towards him. And then my first actual Caps game was back in, I can't remember the year, but Cap 1 was still the MCI Center, and we still had Kolzig, and it was against the Sabres, and they were still wearing black and red, and they had Hasek. And we still had ties in those days, and the game ended in a 1-1 tie. So it was actually a really good game, and just from there on out, I just carried my fandom.
Awesome. So you originally from the DMV area. Whereabouts are you these days?
No, originally I'm actually from North Carolina.
Is that right?
Like I said, yeah, absolutely. I was born in a little place called Lexington, North Carolina. And, like I said, growing up we had the Hurricanes, but back in those days, like in my early years into the game, Carolina was still kind of like an AHL team up until at least like 2002, I believe it was, when they went to the finals against Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, hockey never really was a big thing down here. And it's blossomed so much down here because we had not only the Hurricanes have as good of a season as they had, but we also had 5 amateur teams make the playoffs in their divisions in North Carolina this year. So hockey's really blossomed in this state. And even though I'm not necessarily a fan of the Hurricanes, I am very proud of the fact that the game has grown so much here.
Yeah. Sure does sound like it. Believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Charlotte Checkers are still around. if I remember right, their AHL team or ECHL, if I remember, and of course got the well, it's probably out of your neighborhood, but the South Carolina Stingrays in the ECHL. It's Cap's AA team, basically. So okay, all right, sounds great. So you're living proof that of how Ovechkin has had an effect on getting new fans, not only of the Caps but in hockey in general. That's awesome to hear. So what do you think of the Caps these days?
Old. To be honest with you, old. That's just the answer. I think a lot of us forget that Ovechkin is defying Father Time. This is not the normal. Like, you don't normally have a 36-year-old player that puts up numbers the way he put up this year. And I think we look at guys, and I know you and I have spoke about him, and we don't necessarily agree. But you look at guys like Oshie, and you think about that. He's 35. He cannot stay healthy. So I think we've been kind of bamboozled a little bit just by having Ovechkin, maybe spoiled, to the fact that we think that these older players are going to be able to keep us up whenever it matters like this. If you look at our matchup with Florida, there's a reason that we are nowhere close to being favored to win this series, because they're a faster team, they're a younger team, and they have much more production from their middle liners.
Well, very, very true. And we'll get to something of a playoff preview later on. And as far as the team being old, yeah, that's probably a discussion for another day. But yeah, when it comes down to it, let me be blunt. They're talking about the window closing. I say the window closed 2 seasons ago.
I agree with you.
So yeah, I anybody who thinks the window's still open, sorry, but you're fooling yourself.
I agree 100%.
This team's best days are behind them, not way behind them, but behind them. This is probably their last best kick at the can before any sort of rebuild should be done. But like I say, that's going to be a discussion for after this season is over. Then we can talk about that and what ought to be done. But what's in front of us is the playoffs now. You've been watching hockey a good part of your life. What would you say it's going to take for a team, not just the Caps, but any team to win the Cup this year? What do they have to have?
Well, look, it's been a unique season. It's been the highest scoring season in terms of goals scored in 26 years. This is the first time that we've ever had an Eastern Conference playoffs where every team had 100 points. Mm-hmm. So you have a lot of good competition in this playoffs. What I think matters the most is your core has to be your core. And you look at the best teams in the league, you look at a team like Florida, they have 4 players with over 30 goals in their top 6. And their top 6, I think his goal amount is 24 goals that he had. So they've got 6 players with at least 24 goals. So you're going to have to get offensive output from the guys you depend on from the jump, because it's been a high-scoring season. It's not going to be as defensively minded as it has been normally in the playoffs. So you have to have that, and then you have to have your depth guys coming in. You go back, like you and I talked about a few days ago, in 2018, we had guys like DSP and Lars Eller contributing. You're going to have that. So it's going to have to be an overall team effort on a night-to-night basis. The Stanley Cup's never guaranteed. You can be the best team in hockey and not even come close to the finals. It's happened to us. How many times?
Many times.
So it's you just have to get the best overall effort from line 1 to line 4 every single night. If you can get that and you can get a bit of puck luck, you're in a good shot to win the Cup.
All right, sounds good. Now, I got one last question before we get going into the game recaps. Now, when Tyron introduced you to me and we first started talking, if I'm not mistaken, you said something about playing youth hockey with Adam Fox. Did I read that right?
You got it partially right. I did not play with Adam Fox. I played on a team called the Greensboro Stars, and in 2010, we won a tournament called the Silver Sticks Tournament. And the team that won it the year after us had a kid on their team by the name of Adam Fox, who now plays for the New York Rangers.
Uh-huh. So you were more or less in the same tier, same league.
For that year, yeah, I had a lot of help from teammates.
Okay. So, well, I mean, I put that out there because, the more we talk, the more I realized, I got somebody, look, I value all our listeners' opinions, but I've been wanting for a while to have someone on that, and we've had a few on, but I really wanted someone with an insight of somebody who's been in organized hockey at some measurable level. And when we started talking, I realized you were that guy. So that's why I'm glad we're having you on here. So
Certainly.
yeah, and that's all we're doing here is establishing some creds. So I really think everybody listening out there, you on the other side of the earbuds, the speakers, what have you, I think you're really going to enjoy and appreciate what Jake. Can I call you Jake?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, what Jake has to offer here, because he's got some insights I think are going to be pretty good value here. All right, so let's get started in the recaps. We got 4 games to cover, the last 4 games of the season. So this first one, I kind of want to go into a bit of a deep dive on because I was there live, thanks to my good friend Cheryl Ann Forster, C4. She's probably going to be, I don't know if she's headed out now or if she's going to be out soon, but going on a long trip to Italy. So safe travels, young lady, and hope you have a fun trip.
Have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a guest of hers, and it was me, Mrs. Blue Liner, and her, of course, and Brad Silvestro of the Just a Fan YouTube channel. And this was this was an interesting game. I knew we were in for it because Toronto, much like what the team the Caps will be facing in the playoffs, Florida are kind of a go-go team as far as their offense. Almost pretty much unmatched as far as the talent on paper anyway. And so I knew we were in for it, but I didn't think the game would turn out the way it did. So let's take a look at the score sheet. That's just to recap what happened here. This was Sunday, exactly a week ago. Okay, so first period, 5:34 in. TJ Oshie with his 11th. Anthony Mantha, Ant-Man, his 13th assist. So he takes us home back on those country roads, puts us up 1-0, 5:34. Nice wrister from the circle to
and
put
what
them
a
on top.
perfectly played shot too.
That's
a
one of
beautiful goal.
One of the reasons why I'm not down on him yet. Anyway, even though it's probably not exactly his most healthiest of seasons, but yeah, he's still got that shot. He's still got that awesome play from the circles down. There's probably not a whole lot that's better. And he proved it again on this play.
Yeah, he's dangerous. We have our disagreements on him, but that's for a different conversation.
Yep. So he puts him up 1-0. That's 5:34 into the first. And then, let's see, Ilya, Brad said, learn to say this guy's name right because he's going to be a dangerous guy. Ilya Lyubushkin.
He is, and I still can't say his name right.
Yeah, his second of the year. Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews on the assists on that one. And he ties it 1-1. Nice wrister, 12:32 into the first. So it's a 1-1 game going into the second. No goals in the second. And then Lars Eller, the Tiger, gets one in, tips it in from just in front of the net. And that was at 3:32 of the third, 2-1 Caps. And then just over a minute later, Marcus Johansson puts in the backhander, puts them up 3-1. That's a minute later, and we're thinking, okay, well, maybe we can keep up with this team. Schultz and Sherry on the assists on that one. And it was a long 8 minutes. And because I was on the edge of my seat thinking, okay, well, how are you going to shut them down for 17 minutes? I'm hoping. And, well, unfortunately, they didn't.
Hey.
So Ilya Mikheyev gets his 20th of the year. Dahlstrom and Engvall, here's your sign on the assists on that one. And makes that 3-2 Caps, 12:36 into the third. And, yeah, you knew it wasn't going to be much longer because after that, the Leafs kind of tilted the ice after that. And sure enough, within the the McNugget minute, but the wrong team scored. Jason Spezza gets his 12th, a wrister in close. Leafs had the 6-on-5, and they tie at 3-3 with 58 seconds left. Thus came overtime, and Caps had some chances late on a power play that they got, but the Leafs had some early chances. I really thought they were going to put it away because they had some clear breaks in the overtime period, 2 or 3 at least, high danger golden chances by my count. And I'm very surprised they didn't put it away. But Vanacek was more than equal to the task, at least in the overtime session. So on to the dreaded shootout, which I hate. I'm not even going to. I can't. You who regularly listen to the show, you know my hatred of the shootout. I can't stand it. I'm not going to go into detail.
If you're not going to have it in the playoffs, then it shouldn't be a part of your process. Period.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Finally, somebody who agrees with me. Oh my gosh.
Well, here's the thing, though. I actually like the shootout because of the concept of it. Like, okay, we went head to head as a team for 60 minutes. And then we went head-to-head for an overtime period, so let's just settle it one-on-one. I understand that, but my thing is if, like I said, if you cannot have it in the playoffs, then you should not have it determining the playoffs.
Right, exactly. You cannot. This is a professional league. People are getting paid to play. You want to see a winner. And I get that the league has it structured where the shootouts count for the least amount of points, but standings points still get counted as a result for the shootout.
Yeah, that one point always screws somebody over.
Exactly. And I agree with you. I cannot stand the thought of a skills competition determining playoff seeding, let alone somebody going into the playoffs. So I'm sorry. I have no other word to describe it. It just sickens me.
What I will say, too, is this, is a lot of the newer era of fans, they don't remember what it's like to have ties in the league, where a team could literally come in and the game ends 2-2.
Right. And I don't – look, I might be of that older generation, but – I'm sorry, I don't really have a problem with a game ending in a tie. I don't see why it's so wrong to have.
I don't either, because that's literally drama to the last second.
Right. You have two teams.
Like playoff overtime hockey.
Right.
It's drama to the last second.
Exactly. You have two teams who did everything they could within the time allotted to win the game, and they ran out of time. You can't have them play forever. You can't have them play till they drop. It's just not realistic. You have to have a limit, and if they don't reach a decision in that limit, you got to let it go. And you're still, it's still a result, maybe not the result anybody wanted, but there doesn't have to be a winner in every regular season game. You can still get a result out of it.
What I will say in favor of the shootout, though, is it served its purpose. Because when did they implement the shootout? After what?
After one of the lockouts, if I remember right.
They were trying to gain viewership.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I'm with you there.
People that I know who don't even know anything about hockey will come up to me like at work or wherever, and they'll be like, "Hey, look, I've seen this. This was nice. This was cold. Like that gains viewership." So in that sense, they achieved their goal.
Well, I get that.
But when we're talking about like determining playoff seeding, that should not be in play.
No, absolutely not. And it bothers the hell out of me that it is, even to the smallest extent. So, but yeah, I mean, Yeah, another rant I know about the shootout, but yeah, I'm not going to go into too much detail except for absolutely love Kuznetsov's shot on this one, but that was the only one.
The stick ball.
Yeah, the stick twirl and the 20 dekes and yeah, that was nice. So Alex Kerfoot ends it for the Leafs on the in the what was it, the 14th round I think it was, or the 7th round or whatever it was. Yeah.
They went away.
Yeah. So Caps come away with the loser point. Cheryl Ann said something to me after the game that still sticks with me. They hung with them for a good 60 plus minutes. So, I mean, that is a good sign. They had come off some back-to-back losses that were pretty bad. That will remind you of a couple of the games that were played this past week. But if you want a good takeaway, you want a glass half full take, they hung with them with a pretty fast, pretty skilled team for 60 plus minutes, and that bodes well going forward. If they can stick to that kind of a game, pardon me, and just get maybe a little bit better goaltending, a little bit better defense. I'll say this also. Some of the coaching decisions in this game puzzled the hell out of me. Well, the shootout lineup for one, but I won't go into that.
That's puzzled me all year.
That's already been talked about. But the one thing that bothered me was, all right, you got a team that is good 5-on-5. Now they got a 6-on-5, and you ice the puck in the last minute. Okay, so you know the faceoff's going to be in your end. Why not call a timeout?
And get fresh legs. But
well,
I will say too, and I don't want to be like a negative person, but the fact of the matter is, in that game, they did something that they have done so many times, which is blown a 2-goal lead. They have blown more 2-goal leads than any team in this league this entire season. They cannot play with the Leafs. They can't. That's why unless they're up by like 4 or 5, I don't get comfortable. This team does not know how to play with the Leafs. They just don't.
And I think that you just hit upon it. I think they get too comfortable with a lead, and they sit back. They don't. They stop taking the play to the other team. And I tell you what, you and I both know if they do that at any time in the playoffs, forget it. It's over. You can kiss the game goodbye.
I'm going to be honest with you. Game 1 is going to tell me a lot about this series. If they get blown out in Game 1, it's a sweep.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that. We'll get to that more later. But somebody once said you can win a game too big in a playoff series, and I'll explain that later. But I'm not going to say if that happens in Game 1. I don't think it's going to be over. A lot of people are going to think it will be, but I don't think it will be from that point.
I just look at the team I've been watching recently in these last 3 games. Other than that game at MSG, were they really competitive at all? I mean, yeah, give Sorokin his credit. Sorokin, however you say his name. I always mess his name up. Give him his credit. He had, 31, 32 saves in that game? He kept his net. But, you have to score. If you're averaging 11 shots on net a period, you have to score.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. We'll get to that here in a second. Man, I don't want to get too much into the refereeing. There's a game that will come up later on that I'll mention. But, the officiating in this game was brutal. And especially the one where, the play that Ovechkin got hurt. I don't want to spend too much time on it because there's been talk enough about it already. But I don't care who you are, what you saw, what you claim to saw. The goalie tripped him. Okay, the replay, if you're looking at the right replay, that goalie tripped him and did not have to, because if you see
it by the book, yeah, you got to call that.
Right. If you see where he was no longer a scoring threat. He was actually past the crease when that play occurred, and he reached out and he tripped him. I don't know if he got the puck, but even if he did, he definitely got skate and tripped him and caused him to go into the boards. I don't know about a suspension. I'm not judge or jury. I'm not player safety. I'm not going to talk about that, although it was a very, very dangerous play, and I'll leave it at that. But it should have definitely been a 2-minute penalty.
If you look at that play, though, Ovechkin, when he's coming into the zone, he's never able to settle that puck. So from a goalie's perspective, I've got probably the greatest goal scorer of all time coming down on me. He's not looking at the net because he's looking at the puck trying to settle it. Now is the best time ever for a poke check. So I don't agree with any calls for a suspension or any disciplinary action. If you want to call a trip in the game, I'm fine with that. But other than that, let it go.
Yeah, I don't.
You know, you got to give it to the game sometimes. I don't think there's no part of me that thinks that he had any intention to injure Ovechkin. No part of me.
I don't know. I don't know that he had any intent. Intent, as I've said before, is hard to measure, hard to judge. But I will say this: it was a very dangerous play, and the league has ruled on things like that in the past. That's where I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to advocate. I'm not going to lean either way. I'm just saying that the league has looked at dangerous plays like that and has ruled the other way completely. So I'm just going to put that out there, make of that what you will. But I do think it was definitely a trip.
I agree with you. The only other thing I would say is the league has also been very inconsistent with their punishments as of late as well.
Most definitely, and that's why everybody's got up in arms when they say something, because it's never can never figure out what they're going to do. It's never consistent, like you said. Never the same thing twice. I don't know who they're trying to fool, but yeah, it's pretty bad. So in any case, let's put a bow on that one and ship it off. That's. It was a good game overall, I thought, except for like what Jake said when they blew the lead in the last 10 minutes of the 8 or so minutes in the game. But I think a lot of that had to do with the players' approach to the game, and also I think it had something to do with that very last play where for some reason the coaching staff did not call the timeout when they had iced the puck, because unless you're shorthanded because of a penalty, not because of an extra attacker, but a penalty, you cannot, of course, legally ice the puck. So that meant all of those guys that had been out there had to stay out there. So if you call a timeout, you get that 30 to 45 seconds. You can get yourself a breather and let your guys rest up, maybe, get a refresh going, and maybe just maybe that goal doesn't happen. So that's all I'm saying about that. What's that?
Such a simple thought. Like, I mean, that's the obvious move to make.
Yeah, and that's
the way you just laid it out was perfect. That's the obvious decision to make in that circumstance.
Yeah, and
so for the fact that they don't even call it, sometimes I feel like they don't even recognize what position they're in. Like, we're very close to not being a playoff team.
Right.
So dumb decisions are not going to make that better.
No,
yeah,
not at all.
I can make the argument that if the Islanders didn't have to start the season 13 games on the road, we might not even be in the playoffs at this point. I can make that argument.
Very true. And and now that you mention that, that's why the NBC DC crew mentioned that a couple 3 times in the 2 games that they played against the Islanders. This could very well be a very different thing we're looking at. Might be on the outside looking in because of that. But yeah, stranger things have happened, and fortunately, the Islanders having that turn of bad luck in having to start all those games on the road because their building wasn't ready. Well, that's what happened. Well, speaking of the Islanders, they would be the next 2 games played. Last home game was this past Tuesday back at Cap One. Briefly go into the scoring summary. Connor Sherry 10-24 in the first. Johnny on the spot. I think this was the goal where shoot, I'm trying to get the replay going. I think this was the goal here where he wasn't sure if he tipped it. No, that was last week. I think that was last week. But in any case, Connor Sherry, love his game, by the way. He's always Johnny on the spot in front of the net. And this time he does it again.
That's such a bargain price, too.
Absolutely. Great contract, great pickup. So I'm watching the replay. So he's circling around the slot area and puts himself in the low slot. And Johansson puts it on net, and he manages to get a stick on it. And it gets past, I think Sorokin was the goalie in this game. Yes.
Sorokin was the goalie in D.C. Varlamov was in Long Island.
Right. So this is the first game that's still at Cap One. So yes, it deflects past Sorokin for the 1-0 lead, and that was pretty much it for the Caps after that, because you didn't really hear anything out of them at all after that.
Well, you know what those two games had strong similarities to?
The games that were played the week before, where they just absolutely tanked them. Is that what you're thinking?
Well, that could also apply. But what I was generally thinking is the team that I was watching against the Islanders, that was the same team I watched get beat 4-1 against Boston in the playoffs last year.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back to that team, between Ovechkin, Wilson, Kuznetsov, Backstrom, Oshie, and Mantha, there were only 4 goals, and Ovechkin had 2 of them.
Right.
So you're going to have to get to a point where, okay, you're the core. And yes, I'm so happy that our lower guys are contributing, but we need you. We need you to come through. Because if they're not able to do that, if you can find a way to take Ovechkin out of a game, basically, you can beat us. That simple.
Well, Ovechkin literally was out of this game due to that injury from the one before, and the Caps managed 33 shots on goal, but except for that goal by Sherry, I really don't remember a whole lot of high danger chances.
Yeah,
all I saw.
I was about to say you had a lot of soft shots
Mm-hmm.
that were easy for any NHL goal. Samsonov could have made those saves.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I'm not going to divert into that.
I hear you.
Just it was like, you and I were talking the other night, and I told you when he's not in the game, the fact that you don't even have to worry about him being on the ice, it allows you so much more freedom defensively.
Well,
you don't have to worry about some guy getting lost in the circle. You don't have to worry about nothing. Like, you don't have to worry about that one-timer. You don't have to worry about anything of that nature. So it's just like when he's not in the lineup, this team's not going to win. They're not built to win.
Well, to be sure, and you got a point there, but to be sure, that's what the Islanders do. Doesn't matter who you got against them. That's just what they do. Is they limit the dangerous chances. That's what they're good at.
What they're bad at is scoring goals, and they managed to score 9 on us in 2 games.
This is true. This is very true. And look, I'll just say it right now. I think the basically what we saw this game and the next game we're going to cover. Well, not really, because I don't really want to talk about it. It was that bad. Basically what you saw was a team that was trying to keep up appearances and just save whatever they had in the tank till they could get to the next gas station. Is what they were doing.
I would agree with that.
They were coasting, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And so they knew they had a playoff spot clinched. They knew they didn't really have anything to play for except pick your poison, Rangers or Panthers. And I mean, I think they knew that without Ovechkin, they probably weren't going to have much chance to move up anyway. So I think they just figured, okay, the heck with it. We're just going to try to make it look like we're not mailing it in and be done with it.
That's the problem, though, because that means that they don't have a championship mentality.
That's true. That's true.
Like me in my head, if you're telling me I don't have my best player, but I have to win this game, okay, I'm about to put up 2 goals and 3 assists just to make up for them.
Right, exactly.
Like that's the type of mentality you have to have. So if they mailed it in because they didn't have Ovi, then that tells you a lot about where this team is, and that's not a good place to be.
No, it's not. And on last week's episode, my friend Casey Malone made the great point that you have to carry some sort of momentum going into the playoffs.
And we carry none.
I think this team forgot about that. And yeah, that if they can, forget about these 2 games against the Islanders, I sure hope they can. But if they can't, then if they revert back to that even for a minute during this series, they're done. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Right.
Okay, so Islanders basically came back and scored 4 unanswered goals. Pulock, Dobson, Cizikas, and Anders Lee. 4-1 ending. Caps managed 33 shots, as I said, 0 for 4 on the power play. But, yeah, never any high-danger chances except for that first goal. Not overall a bad game. I thought they came out pretty good in the first period, but after the second period, something just told them to quit, and unfortunately they listened, and that's what happened here.
Well, not only that, but they let in more shorthanded goals than they got power play goals in the last 3 games.
Yeah, and that absolutely cannot be because it's a given. It's going to be a given that in the playoffs, especially against a high octane team like Florida, you are going to give up shorthanded chances. And
you've got to minimize that. And the other thing to that is you have to maximize on your chances to score on those opportunities.
Yeah, you have to.
And so, I mean, I think the power play was 0 for 11 with 2 shorthanded goals against before Carlson's last night. That's ridiculous. Like
that sounds about right.
Even without your best player, you're still in the NHL, and you're telling me this is the best you can give me?
Right. No, this is you still. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's a meaningless game or not. You're still a professional. You still have to give it your best effort.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're afraid to get hurt either. I think that weighed on them too. What do you think?
I don't know. I know the only thing I do know is that they're going to have to be a completely different team if they stand any chance against Florida.
Well, as badly as they quit in that game, when they went up to New York to finish the home and home against the Islanders.
God, it was even worse.
Yeah. I've been trying to avoid this from the start, but we usually go over the scoring summary. I'm not, except that, Islanders basically scored. There were 6 goals in this game. Islanders scored the first 5. I think that's all you need to know.
They didn't even try.
No, they did. You're right. They did not even try. I don't think the Washington Capitals did not show up in this game. I don't even know if you can call them that because the team I saw was not a professional hockey team. Pure and simple.
I don't know, man. Like that was one of the poorest efforts I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, and I think they knew to a man that they didn't want to end the season that way. The one goal was scored by Axel Jonsson-Fjällby, so I will give him credit for that. His second of the year, Mantha and Martin Ferravari on the assist on that one.
I love him.
Yeah, love him. Love AJF, and it was a McNugget minute goal. If you're keeping track out there, so hopefully, if you're a fan, you ate hearty. I'm not, but most people are. Anyway. It's good to see AJF get on the scoreboard and Ferravari as well. Mantha on the primary assist. Too bad it took them 59 minutes to do something in this game. But this was extremely disappointing. And look, I'm not afraid to rip this team when they deserve it, and they deserve it. They were awful this game, and what is worse than they're having a bad game and trying is they were having a bad game because they weren't trying.
Well, I mean,
no two ways about it.
No, I agree with you, but I'm also at the point where I'm like, what do you expect? Look at the team you put together. How many people, when you say their names and then you say their ages, it starts with 30?
Very true, very true. But we've seen this very same lineup pull off some pretty spectacular wins when they should not have. The game 2 or 3 weeks ago against Colorado.
More often than not, it's early in the season. And you can look at this year. This year was an exact replication of that. The first quarter of the way through the season, we're talking about Ovechkin for the Hart. We're talking about the Capitals might win the President's Trophy. But look at what they did after that. Like, once that initial energy wears off and you don't have that youth exuberance in your team, you're not going to win. This is a speed game now. It's just that simple.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you somewhat on that because come playoff time, experience does count for something. And
yeah, but you've got to make it to the playoffs, and we barely did.
Well, that's true. But as they say, all you got to do is get into the show. Well, they're in the show. And so when you're in there, what happened the 82 games before, you can throw that out the window. It's an all new season. Now, it so happens that you can run into injury situations and lineup changes where we happen to have a lot of younger guys that have proven themselves. So if it's necessary, then I'm still going to carry some optimism here. You've got Joe Snively who's coming back. He's going to get back into game shape here in the next week or so. Hopefully the Caps can last that long. You got AJF who probably can fill in any slot in the bottom 6, I think. So I don't know. As far as the experience, yes, they're a slower team, but I'm still optimistic that if they play the game the right way, and I keep pointing back to the Colorado game, if they can do that for the majority of a 7-game series, then they can win. They can go pretty far.
I understand that. But so let me ask you this. Let's say Florida wins this series. How differently would you view this team if Florida wins this series in 5 games versus if Florida wins it in 7 games?
Okay, well, it depends on how those 5 games go. If they're all 1-goal games and they put out their best effort, then, well, look, like I said, it's going to be a matter of what they decide to do in the offseason. Maybe they should blow up the team since the window's been closed. But as long as they put out a good effort and it's 1 or 2 goal losses, then I won't be too disappointed. I mean, I'll be disappointed in the end result overall, but if we're talking, all 5 games end in a 1 or 2 goal loss and they put out their best effort and they were just outplayed, I'm not going to be too disappointed. Now, if we're talking all 5 games, we get blown out of the water, then yeah, obviously that's going to prove the point where it's high time to blow up the roster and get rid of a lot of the older guys. But it's going to have to depend on how those games shake out.
I'm going to be pretty disappointed either way.
Oh, I am too. But I mean, if you think about it, we're going to be disappointed because we expect more from this team. And this team has shown.
Well, not only that, but I'm looking at it from the lens is that the last time we won a playoff series, we lifted the cup.
This is true.
We haven't won a single playoff series in 4 years. This will be if we lose the 4, this will be the 4th year that we didn't win a single playoff series.
This is very true. But this year, I think is their best chance out of all these 4 years to get out of the first round. So I don't think the odds are with us, but I still think with the right amount of effort, and look, we'll get into how it can be done. But Florida is not an unbeatable team.
No, absolutely not.
Not by any stretch. And when it comes to a 7-game series, anybody can be beat. And I'll tell you in a little while why I'm not worried about them.
If you look at each of their regulation losses, I think in all but 3 of their regulation losses, they led the game in shots. So you don't have to create the highest risk opportunities. You just have to create opportunities. And, with all due respect to Bobrovsky, I think a lot of his success is ridden off that offense.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And that's another key to that series. Now, I said I didn't want to talk about the second Islanders game. And you already touched on this a bit, Jake, but the Caps power play was another 0 for 6 in this game. Now, granted, 2 of those chances, as Alan May pointed out at least a couple times during the telecast, was all of about literally 25 seconds, thanks to another shit-the-bed officiating job by the refs. Who are these 2 guys? Trevor Hansen and Bo Halkitis. Let me tell you something. If I hear or see either of these guys' names in this year's playoffs, I am going to write a very strongly worded letter to the league office. These 2 guys should not be anywhere near the playoffs this year. Supposedly only the best refs make it to the playoffs as well. If these 2 guys are in there, we're going to have a problem. These 2 guys should not be allowed to referee a Pee Wee League game.
The funny story is I actually grew up with Bo Halkitis. No, I did. He played youth hockey with me in Greensboro and Charlotte, North Carolina. And you look that up about him. We were on the same team a couple times. We were on a different team a couple times. But no, your overall message is right, dude. I mean, the officiating this year has been the only thing consistent about the officiating this year was the inconsistency.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself.
I mean, I don't understand what you're doing. Like, you call one game one way and then you call the next game another way. Like, no, you just call the game. Call the game that's in front of you.
Right. You see something, you call it one way, and then the very next game, or even the very next minute for that matter, you call the same penalty if it happens again.
Yeah, a trip is a trip is a trip. A hook is a hook is a hook.
I don't
mean,
see...
it really shouldn't be any more difficult than that.
No, it's not. But you're right. This year is above most in recent memory has been pretty bad. And I don't know if we have more of an influx of some younger guys who are starting out, but I don't remember it being this bad from game to game. I don't know. It was pretty bad in the 04 through 08 era. Well, then maybe it's a generational thing where you got guys coming in every 10 years or so, but I sure hope it gets better from here because it was.
Yeah, some of these calls they're missing are cut and dry.
Yeah, it's pretty bad that the amount, not only the type of calls are missing, but the quantity as well. That's what's disturbing.
Yeah, it's one thing to just call the game the way you see it, and it's another thing to let guys play. I mean, I don't think you call every little bit of touch and interference, but also at the same time, if I have a chance to make a play on the puck and you throw me on my ass, that's not you defending your net. That's interference.
Right. Especially if you never touch the puck.
Yeah, exactly. And you've seen a couple of those this year.
Yeah, and they just let those go. I just scratch my head every time. But I'm going to come off that soapbox, and we're going to finish up the last game of the season. We're still in New York, this time against the Rangers. Okay, so much better effort in this game, obviously. I think the Caps, to a man, decided they didn't want to end the season that way, playing at about 50% mentally. Quick run of the summary. No goals in the first. Philip Hedl, his eighth, 326 in the second. Schultz, nice bookend goal because he started the season with a goal in New York, against New York anyway, his fourth. Van Riemsdyk on the assist, ties at 1-1. Nice answers. It was about 35 seconds later. And Carlson on a power play, a nice slapper from the power play point, his 17th. I think that's a career high for him. Pretty sure it is.
It is.
Yep, Kuznetsov, 54th assist. Oshie, the secondary, 2-1 Caps. Alexei Lafreniere, his 19th. 10 and a half minutes later, ties it up in the second. And then I think I don't know if I don't want to say if they ran out of gas or not, but Dryden Hunt made it 3-2 Rangers, 6:42 in the third. And that was pretty much it. Caps had some quality chances from then on, but just couldn't put it in. Puck luck wasn't really with them. At least they got the one power play goal from Carlson, like you mentioned earlier. So at least they had that, and they got 12 shots on goal each period. So the effort was definitely there. The hitting game wasn't ramped up. I think they wanted to kind of keep that to a minimum, but the effort as far as production was definitely there. 12 shots each period for a total of 36 for the game. So if anything, they ended the season on a much better note, even though they didn't get the win. And overall, the pretty good game. I think I don't want to open this can of worms, but I think Samsonov probably wanted at least, if not the last goal, then one of the goals back. Maybe that first one, that wrister. I think he won. Yeah, I think he would have wanted to have that back, and I saw the look on his face. He was cursing himself out something awful after that goal.
Well, I mean, look, the biggest problem is not goaltending, but goaltending does need to be solved.
Right. And we've talked about this to death with others, but I'm not going to sit here and say goaltending isn't a problem. But I'm still going to say goaltending, just like you said just now, Jake. Goaltending isn't the problem, but it is a problem with this team. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you know what I think the biggest problem is. The team can't generate offense without Ovechkin on the ice. It's that simple. I mean, that's the biggest problem with this team. You look at games that he missed this year, and other than the game against Montreal, and you and I could beat Montreal with our hands tied behind our back. That's how bad they are. Other than that game, we're 0-4-0. 0-4-0.
Well, all reports as far as Ovechkin's injury look like it's barring some sort of accident between now and Tuesday, it looks like Ovechkin is going to be in the lineup. He was I'm pretty sure I saw something in the morning skate where they had him on the top line running drills. So I would be very, very surprised if they hold him out of game one, but it looks like he's going to be there for sure. I mean, the man's never missed a playoff game in his life.
I would be surprised if he missed game one.
Yeah,
he was running rushes last week.
Yep. Yep.
So I would be very surprised if he missed game one, but also at the same time, like I said, 35% of that offense is running through him. But Florida has 430 goal scorers.
Well, and now that we're there, there's a way to play them. There is a way to play them where that's not as much of a factor. Yeah,
you keep the puck out of the defensive zone, which we've been at this year.
Well, that when it is in the defensive zone, you keep it to the sides. You keep it along the boards. I'm not going to say their board play is weak, but they're not exactly known for
average.
Yeah, they're not exactly known for having the strongest, bulkiest wingers to win the battles along the boards. I think the Caps are far superior in that regard. So if they can maintain that play and win those little battles along the boards and in the ends, and look, Florida may have the legs so that even if you make them play a 200-foot game and throw it in their end, make them chase it and go back and charge up the ice, you're not going to wear them out. But in a 7-game series, it does add up.
It does, and that's exactly what they're going to have to do to win the series. Is they're going to have to play to Florida's weaknesses.
Right, and speaking of,
we can't play to our strengths and beat them. I'm sorry, we just can't.
Well, I'll disagree with you a little bit on that one. As I just mentioned, they're not a soft team by any stretch, but I think as far as the heavy game, I think the Caps definitely have the edge. And if they play it,
physicality, yes.
Exactly. And if they play it the right way, play up to the edge and maybe a little beyond and not too far over the line, that wears on you in a 7-game series. And I remember it was I'm trying to remember the year. It was I think 2000. One of our first ever series against the Tampa Bay Lightning in the early 2000s. That's how they beat the Caps. They wore them out because the Caps had a team at that point that couldn't play the body, and Tampa Bay did. And they also had a nippy center/winger in Martin St. Louis who could not only out muscle you, but out hustle you too to the middle of the ice and get those loose pucks. But
and he was so small, you never see where he was.
Yep, and surprisingly strong for his size. So he could beat you any way you want. But that's how they got beat in that series. Is because they weren't a weak team, but they were just Tampa Bay was just that much better along the boards. I think if the Caps employ that playbook, that very same playbook against this team, keep everything to the outside. Do not let Florida get to the middle. Because I'll tell you something, they can score a lot of different ways. They're not just a rush team, all right? They can score on a turnover, a transition game. They can score on a cycle. They can score, but they can score best when they've had the puck sustained in the zone and they get the man in front. This team does its best scoring because they manage to get a guy in front of the net in the slot area and they get the rebound goal. I've been watching replays of this team over the course of this season, and darned if half of the goals they scored were because they had a guy in front who slipped in the slot at the right time and picked up the rebound from the goalie. So it's going to come down to two things. Keep this team out of the middle, and when you let them in the middle, the goalie has to either steer that rebound to the corner or out of harm's way, or the forwards and the defensemen have to do their job and clear that rebound by any which way they can.
Who on the roster do you have faith in to do that?
Well, Nick Jensen for one.
That would be my only one.
Oh, well, okay. So, and I get that. I've said this before. I get that he's your middle tier defenseman along with Orlov, and I trust that pair to do a lot of the dirty work. Now, if this team plays its cards right in their lineup matchups, they're going to have Jensen and Orlov anytime the Alexander Barkov line is out there. When Barkov and Jonathan Huberdeau are out there, those two guys will be out there too. I guarantee if they can play the game the right way, keep them both out of the middle, because a lot of the offense is generated from those two. And we've hammered home the point that, yes, they do have superior secondary scoring. But if you can frustrate the top line, that will say something to the rest of the team. That will speak volumes. I really believe that. A lot can happen. A lot gets into your head in a 7-game series. And
Yeah, but I think you have to do more than shut down the top. You got to shut down the top two lines with Florida.
I think it can be done. And if the whole team, not just the D-corps, but the whole team commits itself to, when the play goes the other way, do whatever it is they can to clear the zone, then they won't have to worry about offense because the chances will come. I mean, Florida is not exactly the best team defensively. And let me tell you something. We talked about Bobrovsky. You're right. He's built himself on the fact that Florida outscores everybody. He's not this giant of a goalie that his people have made out to be. He's just not. And I'll tell you something else.
My problem, exactly, because we had 2 games to end this season against backup goalies, and we managed 3 goals in those 2 games.
Well,
so
I think you would agree that wasn't – well, here's my point about that. That wasn't the real Caps. I don't think that was the real Caps team. If the real Caps team shows up, that's going to be the key. If they don't show up all 5 to 7 games or however this thing goes, if they even take a night off, yeah, this thing's over. I won't lie. This series is over. If they even think of taking a night off, they can't.
I'm with you on that. The only chance they have is to put their best effort on the ice every single night. That's the only chance they have. Right.
And they have – not only do they have to flip that switch on, they have to keep it on for however long
Absolutely.
they can. They have to. They've got no choice. But getting back to Bobrovsky, I don't think he's this almighty goalie that can't be beaten. Yes, he has his moments, and he's had his games where he can steal a game or two when he's had to. But his overall playoff record is nothing to write home about. Never has been.
No, I agree with you. But he's also never had a team like this in front of him in the playoffs.
That's true. But as long, and you made mention of it, if our top guys can get their chances, Ovechkin's got his number. Kuznetsov knows how to score on him. And yeah, it's overstated, but if you were paying attention to the 2014 Olympics, we know TJ Oshie knows how to score on him.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing I was saying. It's like you in order to win this series, your core is going to have to show up.
That's what I'm saying.
If they don't, you got no chance.
No, I don't think the secondary talent alone is going to be enough to carry this game unless somehow you can frustrate this Florida team into shutting them down. And if it turns into a defensive battle, which I wouldn't lay money on it that it will, I think I would be very surprised if the average game does not have anywhere from 6 to 7 goals or more in it total.
Also, and also, too, you got to think, you're talking about a team that has Joe Thornton on it. So mental games are really not going to help. They're just not. You're just going to have to show up to the ice rink every day with your A game. That's the only way you can win this series.
Well, I don't know. See, I don't know that. A guy like Thornton, who's never won it, I don't know if that kind of experience is going to be enough if they get into a tough spot.
20 years in the NHL, you got the respect of everybody in that locker room.
Well, this is
Don't
true.
underestimate his role as a leader.
This is true, and I wouldn't. But even so, and I get that they would want to play for him and do their absolute best, but at the same time, he's 42 years old. How often is he going to be out there? How often are they even going to dress him? He didn't even dress half the games this season. So how much of a factor can he be?
You know who that sounds a lot like? Whenever I bring up the Oshie contract, people say, oh, well, he does so much more off the ice. Off the ice only goes so far. So And he's honestly, for his age and his role, he is still contributing at a very high pace.
Now, I won't argue that, and he does have something to contribute. I don't know. I wouldn't. I don't know if I'd overstate it. I don't think he would be I wouldn't put him as a deciding factor. I'll put it that way.
Well, no, I don't think the Florida Panthers are trying to win for Joe Thornton. I think Joe Thornton helps the Florida Panthers win.
That's fair. But yeah, I don't think him by himself is going to be the deciding factor. Like you said, if they can
absolutely not.
If they can continue to have all four lines firing, then yeah, there's no way there's no way the Caps can keep up. But again, there is a way that can be prevented. It's not as if this is a completely impossible task. And again, it's going to take a 5-man effort. It's going to take a committed 5-man effort to keep the play, when it goes the other way, to keep the play out of the middle of the zone. As long as they can do that, then the only way they can score is by taking perimeter shots. And, well, unfortunately, they're still dangerous doing that. So then it'll come down to the goalies limiting their mistakes on the longer shots. And hopefully they can do that. But it'll be, I think you said this already too, Jake, if they can cut down on the shots allowed, and this is why I loved having guys like Brad Sylvester and Blake Allen on, because I learned from them that hockey is, if anything else, is much of a numbers game, if anything. And if you can cut down the amount of shots, then by extension, you cut down the amount of goals. Right, the amount of potential goals. So if they can do that, then they've got a chance. I'm not going to write this team off completely. I know a lot of fans are down about the Caps' chances. I'm not going to write them off completely, even if game one is a blowout. You can always make adjustments. Although lately I've questioned the coaching staff's adjustments that they have made, but maybe they've got some tricks. Yeah, maybe they've got some tricks that we don't know about, some plans that we're not, privy to. But I'm not too worried just yet. I'm pretty confident the Caps can get a split from these first two games, and as long as they do, then anything can happen. I'd be a little worried if they fall into a 2-0 hole, given the Caps' home record this year.
Oh, yeah, they're not coming back from that.
Yeah, but yeah, if they can get a split, then it's on. It's wide open. I think. I think Florida's going into this thinking they're gonna walk away with it, and bless you. And that no problem. If they keep to that, then they're setting themselves up for disappointment, I think.
Yeah, you're right. If they can manage to find their scoring hands, this series could go either way. I think Washington is probably the most dangerous 8 seed in recent history.
I would wholeheartedly agree with that. They have proven that they can beat any team at any time, and had it not been for a complete collapse in the last 20 minutes of their last game in November, they would have beaten Florida in that game. And
yeah.
You can't give that team 20 shots in one period and expect to come out of it the winner.
No, they're just too good up front. You got to be better on the back end.
So I get that a lot of you listening out there are down on this team for a lot of reasons, and I understand why. And it's not that they're a bad team. It's that at times they have had questionable moments, questionable effort. They've battled the injury bug. I think for the most part, I think they're past that. So there's not that excuse this year. Yes, they're a year older than they were last year, but they did not have a Martin Ferravari last year. I think he will end up being the difference. I think his speed and skating ability will be key in that play that I just described, where if they have the middle of the ice covered and don't let that guy get to that slot, I think they'll be fine.
I think Ferravari is going to open the door for Alexeyev.
I really think so too. Alex Alexeyev, of course, a prospect coming up from the Hershey Bears. I would be very surprised if we don't see him sometime next year, perhaps even to start the season.
It's insane if you think about it, like the type of year that Ferravari's had. Like, he's been quiet, yeah, I get that, but also at the same time, he was elected to the NHL's all-rookie team, and there was only one other defenseman in the entire league who was voted with him, and that was some bum named Moritz Snyder.
Right.
So, like, that's how solid he's been. That's how good he's been.
Right. And he's been flying under a lot of people's radars, but I really think he's going to shine this coming playoffs. He'll show everybody why he has earned that consideration, because his coverage play is truly that good. And he's lately, what's pleased me a lot lately is that he's discovered something of an offensive side to his game. I never realized he was that good a stick handler until I saw that move he made.
Who did he score that goal against?
Yeah, I think we're thinking of the same play.
Before Toronto.
Yeah, that game. But yeah, I didn't realize he had any kind of stick handling ability until we saw that goal that he scored in that game. I wish I could remember who it was against, but everybody listening should know who that was or what play we're talking about.
I'm embarrassed that I can't remember which one I'm talking about.
Me too. But yeah, it was that play where he made a couple moves and deked the hell out of some.
He made the shot fake from the point, and after the shot fake, he was around one defender, and then he made a deke, and he went around a second defender, and then he shot through the legs of a third defender.
Right.
So he went around three people to score that goal.
He went around three people and got a goal all on his own, and I didn't know he had that in him, because all I had seen up to that point was the fact that he was a pretty good skater, a pretty fast skater, and could cover.
And he was a very sound defenseman.
Right. Cover any of his spots and steer the puck out of harm's way, but I didn't know he had that in him.
Yeah, he's going to be something special. And like I said, I think with the emergence of Ferravari, I think that does open your door a little bit to, instead of spending money on it, because in all likelihood we're going to lose Schultz this offseason.
Oh, I think that's a given. I think Schultz is going to walk. I can't see them re-signing him.
And there's a good chance we'll probably lose Kempney too.
I would agree with that, and I can't see them. That unfortunately that's probably going to be a team decision not to re-sign him. Like I say, I and it kills me because he was a key component to the 2018 run.
The Cup team.
But unfortunately, because of that injury, he has never gotten back.
He's never been the same.
No, he's never gotten back to 100%. The best he's been is maybe 90-95%, and that's just not going to cut it at the top of the league. So, yeah, I think they're going to let him walk, and I doubt very much that they're going to re-sign him. And yeah, that's going to open up a slot for a younger guy like an Alexeyev.
Yeah, so if you lose Schultz and you lose Kempney, That's about $4 million there, I believe, maybe 3.
About 3.5, I think. But yeah, that'll free up some space. And
I'm not saying you can bring Alexiev in to replace both of them, but you can bring Alexiev in, and then you still have $3 million to spend on a defenseman.
Right, and that I think that's what they ought to use to go after a younger defenseman who can fill in that bottom 6 slot when that's freed up. I don't know if they're that we could spend another hour on this. Starting to run out of time a little bit. We could spend another hour on this, but you and I have gone back. You and I have gone back and forth on John Carlson, and we're in an agreement that getting rid of that contract.
It's not a favorable contract.
No.
At the end of the day, he's a point per game player.
Right.
I would rather have his contract, and I know he's going to be there. He's not going to be on the injury list. I would rather have Carlson's contract than Oshie's contract.
Well, I still say if you're going to be absolutely honest about a rebuild, then that's where you start. Is right there, because if you hang on to a guy like that, I mean, yes, you're committed to Backstrom, Oshie, and Ovechkin, but if you hang on to that contract, then you're not really honest about a rebuild.
What does he have? 4 years left?
He's got 4 years left, and yeah, I get the reality of the situation of that nobody is going to take on $32 million. I get that, but sooner or later his production is going to start to decline, and then that contract's going to look even worse than it does now.
And what you're going to find yourself is in kind of the same type of situation that I've described with the Oshie contract. Is, we love him, we want to keep him, but at the end of the day, let's look at the numbers. He played 44 games this year? So I'm going to pay $6 million to a guy who may or may not give me 60 games, and I'm probably only going to get 40 to 45 points, maybe 50 points out of him.
Well, and my counter argument to that is the moment that he came back 100% healthy, and I think part of his problems this year were that he tried to rush back before he was fully healed. But when he came back finally for good, back in, mid-February, you saw an improvement in the Caps power play, which was stinking like 10 garbage bins up until that point. I think you'd agree. And there was no spark to that team, no effort. And yes, we talked about off the ice contributions only count for so much, but I think his coming back made the difference.
I would agree with the power play, but our 5-on-5 numbers also went down.
Well, I mean, we could go
more time. You spend more time even strength than you do on the power play.
This is true, but even so, once that power play did get turned around, though, they stopped playing like, they had their head up their posterior and got out of whatever funk it was, where they couldn't buy a win. And I'm not going to say him coming back saved the season, but whatever it was after that turned them around and made them play better in March, probably saved their season.
I would be willing to say Anthony Mather coming back saved the season.
Well, here, and I love Ant-Man, but I would say if anyone's been inconsistent, it's been him. And yes, he looks good coming off that injury, but I don't think we saw enough of him imposing his will in last year's playoffs. And sometimes he can drop off the map completely. Now, if that happens,
but I know I have a good contract with him, and I know he's still in his 20s, so I know I got time with him. That's something that I can build around. TJ Oshie's 35 years old. A lot of people forget that. A lot of people forget that core we built in 2016 when we won those 2 President's trophies. That's almost 6-7 years ago now. Those guys are old.
Well, that's true. And like I say, if you're honest about a rebuild, then yes, you got to think about some of those contracts and think about what you want to hang on to long term, what you actually want to keep. The problem is, who's going to take all that money? You've got the same problem there as you do with the Carlson contract.
What you're going to have to do is you're either going to have to eat contract on a trade, or you're going to have to give a compensatory pick, to make it worth the team trading for, to make it worth them taking on that extra added money.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they would have to sweeten a deal. But I just can't see them parting with Oshie unless they could put together something like that where they get either draft picks or younger prospects back in return. It would have to be worth the while. Otherwise, they're probably just going to let him play out that contract.
What do you think he's worth right now, honestly?
Well, I mean, everything and everybody. I hate to compare people to cars. These are human beings after all, but everything does depreciate. That's the first thing they teach you in high school economics. So, no, if you had to say, is he worth the $6 million? No, of course not. I would say but you have to take the intangibles into consideration. If you take all that into consideration, I would say, given all that and the fact that he could probably by himself win 1 or 2 games for you in the playoffs, could make a difference. He's probably, I would say, worth still to me $5 million a year. Well, for this year anyway.
I mean, in trade compensation. Let's say you're the GM, and I come to you and I say, hey, I want Oshie. I will give you a 4th round pick, and you don't have to eat any of his salary. Would you take a 4th round pick for TJ Oshie?
No, I would not. No, I would not. It would have to be at least a 2nd rounder.
A 2nd rounder for a 36-year-old that can't stay healthy?
Yeah. Again, I know you. I get, Jake, that you're not. Well, you're looking at the intangibles and you say they don't count for much. To me, they do. Tom Wilson, around the trade deadline, made something of a speech about this team having a lot of glue guys to them, and having a community unto themselves where they can count on each other. And I think he's one of those guys. And this has not been a very good season on the ice. And I think the fact that they can count on him either on the ice or off the ice to be part of that has made a difference. I know not everybody sees it, but I do.
It's not been a difference in the end result, though, is my point. The end result is for the last 4 years we've been 1st-round exits. Well, and he's doing nothing but getting older.
Well, I don't think respectfully, I don't think you can put that even. I wouldn't even put half that on him. In one of those years.
No, absolutely not. I'm not saying you put it on him as he's to blame for the reason that we lost, or that he is the reason that we didn't even win. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there are better ways to spend that money to make yourself a more competitive team.
Well, by the same token, I say there's better ways to spend $8 million on a guy that, yes, drives your offense in some respect, but there are a lot of younger guys who can do the same thing for less money. And at the same time, that same guy is becoming more and more of a defensive liability as time goes on, and he's only getting older. So by the same token, you have that argument with that guy. And yes, I know Carlson's a very popular guy, but again,
we're talking about winning right now, right?
Well, see, you have to be realistic.
If we're talking about winning right now, then it's not even a question. The Oshie contract is the worst. If we're talking about setting something up for like 3 or 4 years from now, then yeah, you've got me. Carlson's contract is the worst. But if we're talking about right now, here today, TJ Oshie's contract is handcuffing the team. That's $6 million for 50% of a season.
Well, this season was his worst as far as his injuries. I think, unfortunately, I think you're
He's
judging.
35.
Well, you're judging this season, and you're kind of making that the whole argument. What's happened this season based on it to base your argument.
I'm
as
saying
far
it's not going to get better at that age.
well, neither is Carlson.
Yeah, but Carlson's 3 years younger.
I get that, but he's going to become even more of a defensive liability. You said it yourself. That without Ovechkin, this team doesn't have the offensive talent to keep up.
But
When he's
but
going to, he's
you're
taking.
looking at it. You're looking at it differently. Whenever that time comes, Carlson's not going to have 3 more years left. I think he's going to have 2.
Right, but he's only going to get. I get that Oshie is on the same trajectory, but Carlson's only as bad as he is defensively, and he is pretty bad defensively. Now you don't even have to look at. You don't even have to look at plus minus. Now look at advanced stats. He is one of the worst, in fact, the worst as far as goals against per 60. You can look at any of those metrics. He is the worst on that team, and I can't see him getting any better. And he was hurt at the end of last year, and we didn't hear anything about any sort of treatment or a surgery or anything. We don't know what happened with him.
So let's say we get rid of Carlson. Who is the quarterback on the power play now? Who are you going to give that responsibility to?
Well, you use that money to go in free agency after somebody who is. You play that market. That's why getting rid of that contract is a benefit.
But who's on the free agency market this year that's going to actually fix the problems on the Capitals' power play?
I can't answer that. I wish I could answer that.
There's not really an answer. I mean, it's not a hot market right now. I agree with you. It's not the best contract, but also at the same time, it's like this isn't the one that we should be looking at that we need to get out of. The one we need to get out of is, like I said, and as much as I hate to say it because I love him, 40 points for $6 million in 44 games. Now, if you're playing 82 games, that's great because that's about an 80-point season almost.
There's a lot of guys who play the same amount of games, making the same amount of money, who make a lot of less points, who score a lot less points.
Yeah, well, a lot of them probably get further than the damn first round too.
Well, I don't think holding on to one guy because he's happened to have been hurt a lot the last year or so is damning their future.
Well, no,
or their presence.
Of like Lars Eller's contract. We need to get rid of that too.
Well, yeah, and I tell you what, I think next year is Lars Eller's last full year on contract. So I would not be and this kills me too because he's the guy, of course, that got the cup-winning goal. So as I like to say,
you don't want to see him go, but in the best interest of the team, it ends up being business.
Right. So as I like to say, he's if I had a drinking establishment, he'd drink for free anytime he wanted, but. No, he probably won't have very much value, if at any, after next year. And I can completely see a Connor McMichael stepping into that slot because he's proven that he is much more comfortable and productive playing the center slot than the wing. Once he got shifted to the center space as opposed to playing the wing, then he started blossoming. So I think once Eller moves on, then you fit McMichael into that 2C or 3C spot, and he'll shine.
Well, the other thing too is it's not only a matter of if Eller's gone; it's a matter of when.
Well, yeah,
he's a center, and we have literally put him on the wing, on the bottom lines, this season, just because he wasn't giving us what we needed from him.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, you talk about inconsistency and lack of production. I would say, and I hate putting it on him, but there have been times where he just wasn't there. Like you said, wasn't there when we needed him. And I just can't see him, being getting much more use out of him after next year. In fact, I don't even know if they'll wait till the end of next year. He'll probably be gone by mid-season or the trade deadline.
I think he's probably going to be moved in the off season.
So, but what we just talked about really probably won't come into clearer focus until we know what we've got, and we won't know what we've got until the playoffs are over. So, I mean, that we can table or continue until next year. But, I think we can agree on this. A lot of tough decisions are going to have to be made.
Oh, absolutely.
Because there's no way that the team, as constructed as it is now, can go on into next year. With contracts expiring, you're going to lose at least 2 or 3 guys. And I keep saying it, but they have to get serious about a rebuild sometime, and they may as well start now.
I agree.
Because your entire D-core is over 30. Too many of your forwards are over 30. And there have been a lot of guys. I don't know that Laviolette's the guy to mentor a lot of the younger guys. I think they'll get something of a how do I put this? A bridge cut type of coach that's good with younger players to help them develop. Hire him.
I would love to see Rick Tocchet.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's pretty good with the younger guys. I think he did a pretty good job. I don't think he got a whole lot of credit when he was with Arizona. They were starting to come along. And then he left because they couldn't agree on a contract.
Well, not only Arizona, a lot of people forget he was Sidney Crosby's one of his first coaches.
And Steven Stamkos as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So yeah, he's mentored a lot of young guys that came into an elite level. So yeah, that'd be a good pick there. I don't know if he's going to be the guy that finishes the rebuild, but I wouldn't mind seeing him behind the bench. But yeah, somebody who's good with the younger guys and can also, keep the veterans in line as well. I think they, not to beat this dead horse, but I think they thought they had that in Todd Reardon, but yeah, we know what happened with that.
It just never hit.
It just never came to be, and I'll leave it at that because, like I said, that's a horse that's dead and buried. All right, so yep. So I think this is a good place to stop here. A lot of good discussions here as far as past, present, and future for sure. Yeah, pretty good talk here, Jake. Loved having you on, and thanks again for coming on with us. And so we got a few minutes here. I understand you're part of, I think you said you're one of the admins or moderators of a pretty good Facebook page. You want to talk about that for a few minutes?
Yeah, thank you so much. We have a group called Freeze the Puck Hockey, and I'm the Capitals admin for it. We just passed 10,000 followers last month. We'd really love and appreciate if you guys came over and gave us a look, check us out a little bit. We're a good place for breaking news in the NHL, and we're also just a good place for loose comedy memes. We have material for all areas. We have material for everybody. So just come give us a check out. Like I said, it's Freeze the Puck Hockey on Facebook. Give us a like and a follow, and we really appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad Tyron put you with us because I've been kind of looking for a league wide page, and there's a couple of them out there, and I don't know. I had to quit them because, well, let's put it this way. They started due to certain circumstances, I'll just leave it at that. They started to turn anti-Washington for certain reasons. I think you guys out there can read between the lines on that one. I won't say why, but
they had too many Ranger fans.
Well, maybe, yeah, that for sure, but for other reasons as well. So I kind of had to quit them. So yeah, I'm glad you're putting that one out there. It's a Freeze the Puck Hockey. I encourage all of our listeners at the Power Play Point Podcast Facebook page to check that out. Going to post a link to that a couple times here in the coming weeks. So, yeah, go ahead and check that out if you're looking for a league-wide perspective. I've taken a look at it here. There seem to be some pretty good people there. So, yeah, I think you'll all enjoy it. So, all right. So, we
certainly appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely. And they've already checked out our podcast, and they agreed to give us a little plug. So always appreciate that, getting a shout out from some new folks coming aboard. So appreciate that for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. So, okay. So once again, we're going to stop it here. And, we're speaking of podcasts. I highly recommend checking out the Told It Here podcast with Joe B. and Locker. I listened to the latest episode, the second one, basically the story of how they got together. That's some funny stuff. Check it out. You won't regret it. Okay, so we're going to stop it here for the week. Fingers crossed, my fellow Caps fans. Look, all is not lost. I know a lot of you feel like this is not the best situation. I know what they're up against, but honestly, they faced worse. And I mean, yeah, we don't want to look at another first round exit in the face, but if that's the worst that can happen, and then, you know, we've seen it all before. Enjoy the playoff run when you can, because at the end of the day, there ain't nothing like NHL playoff hockey, and you and I both know what we're talking about. Okay, Amen. So yay, yeah, absolutely. All right, so for Jacob Michael, this is the Blue Liner on Point signing off and reminding you, well, that the joys of renting a property are few. I'll give you an example. This one time, I called up my property manager and I said, hey, I got a leak in my sink. He said, go ahead, I'm not judging. The new folks I usually manage to get to laugh on the first go around. So I appreciate.
I was just trying to be quiet.
Appreciate that. All right, hallelujah, and let's go Caps.
Let's go Caps.
This has been another episode of the Power Play Point Podcast. All episodes are available from Apple Podcasts, the Podbean app, blueliner77.podbean.com, and now available from Stitcher. Music by Joe McAllister, voiceover by Jeffrey Conkle.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Power Play Point Podcast. Thanks for listening.